Welcome to the lecture series on the computer communication networks. We were discussing the concepts from module 3, that is wireless LANs. In the previous video, we had considered the introduction to the wireless LANs, wherein we considered the distinguishing factors between the wired LANs as well as the wireless LANs. So in this particular video, we'll consider the concepts from the IEEE 802.11 project. Myself, Abhilash KJ, Assistant Professor, Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, will guide you guys through the session. In the previous video, we had considered introduction to the IEEE 802.11 standard, and we discussed the architecture part of it, the types of the service sets that are possible, and the type of the stations that are present. So in this video, we'll consider the MAC sublayer and the physical layer specifications in detail. We'll consider the second topic under the IEEE 802.11 standard, that is a MAC sublayer, in other terms media access control sublayer. So IEEE standard defines two types of, we have already discussed the need and necessity of the MAC layers. Since the medium we are making use here is a wireless medium, which is air, which is broadcast in nature, as it is shared by multiple users, there is a proper mechanism that is required to monitor the use of the shared broadcast medium. So IEEE 802.11 defines two MAC sublayers. One is the distributed coordination function, that is DSF, and second one is the point coordination function, that is PCF. So this particular diagram shows the relationship between the data link layer, the components of data link layer, that is logical link control and data link control, and the physical layer. So this is the MAC sublayer we are speaking of, which comprises of the point coordination function, which is PCF, and the distributed coordination function, that is DCF. Next, we have the logical link control layer, which is IEEE 802.11, which is LLC sublayer. So this LLC sublayer along with the MAC sublayer will constitute the data link sublayer. And coming to the physical layer, each of the specifications has the different physical layer implementation, which we'll discuss in the subsequent section. So we have 802.11 frequency hop spread spectrum, direct sequence spread spectrum, infrared, and extended version of DSS, and we have orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, and we have the extended version of DSS again. So this constitutes the physical layer. So here the point coordination function, that is PCF, is extensively used in the cases of the contention-free services. The term contention-free service here means that it is usually implemented in the point-to-point nature, that is between a station to another station, usually between the access points as well as the stations. So the communication between the access point to the station is implemented by making use of the point coordination function, or the PCF. So as we can consider here, whenever in the network scenarios, when we considered extended service set ESS, the APs will be present, which is a centralized architecture or infrastructure which controls the operation of entire BSS. In that note, the communication between the access point to the stations is monitored by PCF. That is why it is called as contention free. Here the APE does not require to contend among anybody else inside the BSS. That is why the term the contention free service is used. And the distributed coordination function is used when the contention services are used. So the contention services here means that the station has to contend among themselves to gain access to the medium. So in the absence of AP, that is access points, the stations has to contend among themselves to gain access to the medium. In that note, the distributed coordination function will be used. Sublayer, first we'll consider the distributed coordination function, then we'll continue with the point coordination function and the subsequent topics. So coming to the DCF makes use of CSMA bar CA as a access method. So we have already discussed the carrier sense multiple access with collision avoidance in the previous module, that is in the random access schemes, the multiple media access control. Under the media access control we considered the random access schemes. In that, the final topic we considered was CSMA bar CA, which is nothing but carrier sense multiple access with collision avoidance. The protocol functioning, let us briefly revisit the concept. So whenever station has data to be sent, it will send the backoff timer to 0, and it will make use of the persistence strategy to sense the medium, whether the medium is idle, busy. Once it finds the station idle or the medium idle, it will wait for a duration of time which is called as DIFS, that is distributed interframe space. After that, it will send a control frame, that is request to send to the intended destination, and it will set the timer. Next, it will wait for the CTS control signal from the receiver. CTS is nothing but clear to send. Once the CTS is received, it will verify whether the CTS was received before the timeout. That is with respect to the timer they have considered. If the CTS is received before the timeout, it will wait once again for a shorter duration of time, which is called as the short interframe space, that is SIFS. After that, it will send the frame. Once the frame is sent, the timer will be set in this particular case to monitor the success of the data transmission. Once the acknowledgement is received from the receiver before the timeout, then the communication is said to be successful. If the acknowledgement is not received, that is a clear-cut indication of collision occurred or the frame is corrupted. On that note, at the same time, if the clear to send is not received from the receiver before the timeout, once again the backoff time will be incremented. It is not that straight away the station will retransmit, but it will wait for a incremental exponential backoff period of time. Next, it will check whether the backoff limit has been reached. If it is reached, then the operation will be aborted. Else, it will set the backoff timer, and once again it will come to the persistence strategy to sense the medium, and the operation will be continued until the communication is successful or the maximum backoff period has been reached, or the maximum retransmission limit has been reached. The same could be explained in the timeline, frame exchange timeline. We have considered four stations. Station A and station B are the sender, station A is the source, and station B is a receiver. So station A will wait for a station has some data to be sent to the station B. It will wait for a shorter duration, which is called as distributed interframe space. Then it will send the request to send to the intended receiver. After that, the station B will wait for a shorter amount of time, that is short interframe space. Then it will give the clear to send control signal to the source. and the same signal will be broadcasted in the other medium, that is other stations that are present. So after the source receiving the CTS that is clear to send from the destination, once again it will wait for a shorter duration of time, that is short interframe space, then it will start communicating the data. Once the data transmission is completed, if the station is not destination is not received any particular data for a duration of SIFS, that is short interframe space, it will send the acknowledgement regarding the successful transmission of the data, and the acknowledgement will be broadcasted in the entire broadcast medium. So on that note, all the other stations, here I have considered two stations, station C and station D, comes to know that in this particular duration of time the station A and station B were communicating. So once station C and station D receive the CTS, that is an indication for station B and station C and station D that station A and B are communicating. Thus, these two stations are not allowed to communicate during this particular duration of time. So that is given by the network allocation vector. So once other stations which are not part of the communication hears the CTS, which will have the information regarding the once the RTS is sent, RTS will be having the time duration for which A want to communicate to B. So that communication is mentioned in the CTS. Once the other stations receive the CTS, come to know that for how long duration A will communicate with B or any other station communicates with the destination, and they differ their transmission by the amount that is mentioned in the CTS. So that particular duration or the timer is called as a network allocation timer, which will give the indication on how much duration must pass before these two stations are allowed to check the channel for the idleness. So one of other two parameters which are considered under the max sublayer is in terms of distributed coordination function, in terms of the collision during handshaking and the hidden station problem. So even though the collision is avoided in the data transmission phase, the collision might occur at the time of handshaking. So the term handshaking here means the exchange of the control information in terms of the request to send and clear to send, that is RTS as well as a CTS. So even though the collision is not occurring at the data transfer phase, two or more stations may send the RTS simultaneously. So this particular frames may collide among themselves. To overcome this particular problem, it is difficult to identify the collision in this particular case. So to overcome this particular situation, if the CTS is not received before the timeout, then the backup strategy is implemented so that the sender can try resending the RTS again. The second problem is in terms of hidden station problem. It is encountered in CSMA bar CA. It is countered in terms of by making use of the handshake frames, that is RTS and CTS. So in the figure we have considered, whenever an RTS message is sent from sender to receiver, but it is not heard by the hidden station, that is not in the range of the sender, but it is in the range of the receiver. Since once the CTS message, that is clear to send message, is sent from the intended receiver, it will be received from all the stations that are in the transmission range of the receiver. Since the hidden station is also there in the transmission range of the receiver, it receives and clear to send a control packet intended for the other sender. Thus, it differs its transmission, thereby countering the hidden station problem that is overcome by making use of CSMA bar CA. Concept, that is point coordination function. It is an optional access method that is usually implemented in an infrastructure network. That means there is a presence of access point in that node. Thus, the PCF is not applicable for ad hoc network where there is no central administration is involved. So it is implemented as we have considered earlier, it is implemented above the DCF. So most of the time it is used in the applications such as the time sensitive transmissions. So PCF, as already mentioned, is a centralized contention free polling access method, which we have already considered the polling under controlled access methods. We have considered the polling mechanism. So PCF implements that. So here the AP performs, that is access point performs the polling for the stations that are capable of being polled. So stations are polled one after other if they have any data to be sent to the AP. So in order to distinguish between PCF and DCF, the priority is given for PCF as the communication is between the AP and an administrator and the stations. Thus, the PCF is given higher priority compared to the DCF. So at any given instant of time, AP gains a priority, thus initiating the data transfer. So now being said that PCF has upper hand or the priority over DCF, we have to consider the drawback that the stations which only use the DCF may not gain the access to the medium. In order to prevent this particular problem, the concept of the repetition interval is designed to cover both the contention-free PCF as well as the contention-based DCF traffic. So the repetition interval is nothing but it is a timing duration which is continuously repeated, which will start with a control frame which is called as a beacon frame. So whenever the stations hear the beacon frame, they'll start their network allocation vector for the duration that is mentioned in the beacon frame, which is referred as the contention free period of the PCF. So during the repetition intervals, any point controller can send, that is any access point can send the perform the polling operation among the stations. Once they receive the data from the station, they send the acknowledgement signal or any combination of that. So at the end of the combination, at the end of the contention free period, that is at the end of the PCF, the access point or the point controller will send the CF end, that is contention free end frame, to indicate that the contention free data transfer has ended. Now the contention based station can perform the transmission, or they can gain the access to the medium. Diagram to illustrate the repetition interval. So we have the polled stations, that is the stations which are under the control of AP. So whenever the repetition interval has been started, that clearly means the AP is performing polling to receive from the receivers, to receive from the stations. So the communication is only between AP as well as a host in this particular case. So the communication is now contention free. So the AP will wait for a duration. The new data frame, which is called as PIFS, that is PCF interframe space, which is usually shorter than the DIFS, is used. the AP will wait for this particular duration of time. After that, it will send the beacon frame. So the beacon frame clearly mentions the duration for which these stations are not allowed to have access to the medium, and only the AP is having access to the medium. So after the beacon frame is sent, the AP will wait for a short interframe space. Then it starts polling the different stations for the data transfer. So upon that, the host receiving the polling sequence from the access point, it will send the data along with the acknowledgement. Once the data transmission is complete from the host to the AP, once again AP will wait for a short interframe space, then it will send the next polling sequence, and the sequence continues until all the stations are polled. Once all the stations are polled, AP will send the CF end, that is contention free end frame, which will indicate that now the contention based stations are allowed to have the access to the medium. So this is the network interframe space starting from the start of the beacon frame until the CF end, where the contention based stations are not allowed to transmit, but contention free based stations are allowed to transmit or receive. So this is the contention free duration. So this is the contention free duration we are speaking of from the beginning of the PIFS until the CF end. So this is the contention based duration we are speaking of, and this entire duration is nothing but the repetition interval, that is the combination of the contention free duration plus the contention duration. So the next concept under max sublayer is fragmentation. As we have spoke of the characteristics of the wireless environment, since it is very noisy, the frames are very easily corrupted. So if once the frame is corrupted, there is a need for the retransmission. So if the protocol is recommending fragmentation, the larger frames could be sent to the, or can be divided into the smaller ones. So thus it becomes more efficient to resend the smaller frames rather than sending the larger frames. So thus the fragmentation plays one of the important role. So coming to the frame format, the MAC layer frame consists of the 9 fields. So the first field is the frame control, which is of 2 bytes, which once again comprises of the following fields. First field is the protocol version, which is 2 bits, which will indicate the current version of the protocol that is being used. And the second field is the type field, which is of 2 bits, which will have the type of information that is being exchanged. So there are 3 types of frames that could be sent, and 3 frames that could be sent. One is the management frame, the control frame, and the data frame. And the third field is the subtype, which is 4 bits in length, which will give the subtype of each of the type frames we are considering, that is under management frames, control frames, as well as the data frames. So the next field is 2DS. DS here stands for distributed service. So which is of 1 bit, which will have the address of the distributed system, and from DS is of 1 bit. We'll discuss this in detail in the subsequent sections. So more frag is nothing but when the value is set to 1, that means there is a fragmentation that has been implemented, and the information contained is in terms of 1 bit. And retry is the flag that is used to identify the situation when it is set to 0. the retransmission is not done. When the retry flag is set to 1, that means there is a retransmission of the frame that will be taking place. So the next field is the power management. When it is set to 1, the station is in the power management mode. And the next flag is the more data. That means the station has not completed the communication. There is more data to be sent under this particular transmission period. And the next field is WEP, that is wired equivalent privacy, which is the implementation of the encryption. And last field is reserved, which is of the 1 bit. So this entire data is of the 16 bits, or in terms of FC could be identified. The 2 bytes of data is identified in terms of these are the contents of them. So the details of the same is implemented here. The current version is 0. So the type of information if the type field has the value 00, since we are having the 2 bits here, if it is 00, that is a management frame, 01 is a control frame, 10 is a data frame. Subtype will be the subtypes of these frames we have considered. 2DS and from DS will be discussed in the subsequent sections. If the more flag is set to 1, the fragmentation is implemented. There are more fragments to come. When retry is set to 1, it means a retransmitted frame. So when power management is equal to 1, that means the station is in the power management mode. The more data means the station has more data to be sent. WEP is a wireless equivalent privacy, that is encryption implementation. And reserved is nothing but the field flag indicates that this particular field is reserved. So the second field is D, which is of 2 bytes, which defines the duration of the transmission, which is used to set the network allocation vector for other stations. The next field is addresses. So there are 4 addresses we will be speaking of: address 1, address 2, address 3, and address 4. Each of this address are 6 bytes long. Whose content will be dependent on the 2DS and from DS subfields from the frame control field. Next we have sequence control, which is of 2 bytes length, which will have the value of the sequence number, wherein the first 4 bits defines the fragment number, and last 12 bits will define the sequence number, which is usually same for all the fragments. And the next part is your frame body, which is the actual data information from the type and subtype information that is given from the contents of these 2 fields, whose data may vary from 0 to 2312 bytes. And finally we have FCS, that is frame correction, which is 4 bytes long, which will be containing the CRC32 error detection sequence. Next we'll consider the frame types. Wireless LAN has defined, that is 802.11 has defined 3 types of frame categories. As we have already mentioned, the type field will indicate the type of the frame, the management frame, control frame, and the data frame. So the management frames are used in the initial part of the communication between the stations and the access points. The control frames are used for gaining the access to the medium, that is channel, as well as the acknowledgement frames. So we'll consider there are 2 types of basic control frames we'll be considering. One is RTS as well as CTS. RTS comprises of the FC field, that is frame control field of 2 bytes. It will be having D field, that is duration field of 2 bytes. it will be having address 1 and address 2 of 6 bytes each, and it will be having 4 bytes of the FCS. This is the frame format for RTS. The second type is the CTS, that is clear to send or acknowledgement, which will be having the frame control field of 2 bytes, duration of 2 bytes, and it will have only the address 1. Here the destination is not required, only the sender address is required. That is why only one address field is required, the 6 bytes of address 1 and 4 bytes of the CRC 32 error detection code. So the subtypes of the control frames are given by the following contents. As we have clearly mentioned in the previous case, subtype is of 4 bits. If the value is 1011, that is a request to send subtype. If the subtype is 1100, it is clear to send. If the subtype is having the value 1101, it is an acknowledgement control frame we are making use of. Finally, the last frame type, that is a data frame, is used for carrying the data as well as the control information. So next prominent concept which we have to understand is the addressing mechanism. So addressing mechanism comprises of IEEE standard specifies 4 cases defined by the value of the 2 flags, that is to DS as well as from DS. Each flag can have the binary value 0 or 1. So thereby we have 4 possible combinations, that is 00, 01, 10 and 11. So the interpretation of these 4 addresses, that is from address 1 to address 4 in the MAC frame will depend on the values of these particular flags. So this gives a picture of how exactly the contents of these 2 fields will have impact on these address fields. If to DS and from DS is 00, so address 1 field will be a destination address, and address 2 will be the source address, and address 3 will be the BSS ID. So clearly we have to understand here, to DS is 0 means to the distribution is 0. That means the station is not communicating to the distributed system. So from DS here 0 means I am not receiving the data from the distributed system. That means in this case I am not sending to the distributed system, I am not receiving from the distributed system. Thus the communication is happening inside the basic service set. The communication is not outside the communication set. So thus the address 4 is not required. So in the second scenario, when to DS is 0 and from DS is 1, so here the station is receiving from the distributed system. On that note, the address 1 field will be the destination, and address 2 is an intermediate device which is enabling the communication to the distributed system. So here the communication is happening from the access point to the destination field. Thus address 2 field will be the sending AP, and here the communication is happening from the station which is outside the BSS of the destination. Thus address 3 will be having the source station. And the third scenario is vice versa of the second case, that is the station is sending to the AP on that node, or it is communicating outside the BSS. On that node, address 1 is nothing but the next hop station, that is a receiving AP, and address 2 is the source station, and address 3 is the destination station. And the last scenario is when the to DS is 1 and from DS is 1. Here the communication is not between the station from the BSS, but it is between the ESS, that is from one AP to the another AP the communication is happening. That is why clearly it is mentioned receiving AP to the sending AP, and then I have the source and destination station. In general, we can clearly say that address 1 is always the address of the next device the frame has to visit, and address 2 is the address of the previous device that the frame has left, and address 3 is the address of the final destination if it is not defined by the address 1 as well as address 2, and address 4 is the original source when the distribution system is also the wireless. Let us look into these cases separately. We'll consider the first case when to DS and from DS is equal to 0, 0. That is, communication is happening inside the BSS. So this is the frame structure we will be dealing with. Here I have, this is address 1, address 2, address 3. Then I have sequence control. Then I have address 4. Here it is only required to have the two addresses, that is the destination and the sender. So address 2 has the source address and address 1 has the destination address, and address 3 will be having the BSS ID. Now the communication is happening inside a basic service set. So this is case 1 when DS is equal to 0 and to DS is 0 and from DS is 0. Let us consider the second case when to DS is 0 from DS is 1, that is a station is receiving a data from the distribution system. On that note, there is a AP that is involved. So here, and the communication is from AP to the B. Once the AP is involved, the distribution system is involved. That is why the from DS value is 1 and to DS value is 0. Here, this is one BS and this is one BSS and this is another BSS. So initially A has communicated its data to the distributed system which it wanted to convey to the B. The access point will relay that particular information and it will send the data here. Here the clear differences we can clearly see. The address 1 field has the destination address, address 2 field which has the address of the last device it has visited, that is the AP, and address 3 is the source address. Let us consider case 3, that is 1 0, that is to DS is 1 and from DS is 0, that is the station is communicating to the distribution system. On that note, the destination is AP, the next node device it will visit is AP, address 1 is AP, address 2 is the source, the last device it has visited, address 3 is the final destination it has to reach, and the communication will happen across the distributed systems. As we can clearly see, this is a different BSS and this is a different BSS. And the last scenario is when the communication is happening between two different APs via wireless distributed system. So AP is communicating to the another AP through the wireless distributed system to the other device. Now address 1 is the next address of the device, that is AP2. Address 2 is the last device that it has visited, that is AP1, and the final destination is B, and the source of the frame is station A. This is the case 4 when to DS and from DS is equal to 1. So now we have to consider, we have already discussed the hidden station problem and how it is overcome by making use of CSMA bar CA. The similar problem that is encountered is in terms of exposed terminal. So the exposed station terminal problem means that a station is refrained from using a channel when the channel is available. So let us consider the scenario. Here station A has something to be sent to station B. Thus it will send a RTS frame. Once the RTS is sent, the station B will reply back with CTS, that is clear to send. On that note, the communication happens between A to B. Even though the communication is happening between A and B, and if station C want to communicate to station D, it is refrained from the communication. Why? Because station C is in the transmission range of station A. Thus, if station A is communicating with somebody, that is hidden station, station C assumes that the medium is already occupied. Even though it wanted to communicate to station D, this communication may be independent of this communication. Thus, the station C, which is exposed to the transmission of station A and B, is refrained from its transmission. So this particular problem is called as a exposed station problem. As C can send to D because this area is free, but the C is erroneously refraining from sending because it has received a RTS from station A. So if the station C communicates to A, then there is a collision. But if station C is communicating to the station D, there is no probability of the collision occurring. So this particular problem is referred as exposed station problem. Coming to the physical layer, there are 6 specifications that is specified by IEEE 802.11 standard, which makes use of all the implementations in terms of infrared, which will operate in ISM band, that is industrial, scientific, and medical band, which defines 3 unlicensed bands in the range of 902 to 928 megahertz, 2.4 to 2.4 to 4.835 gigahertz, and 5.725 to 5.850 gigahertz range. So these are the specifications which we will be discussing. So the distinction is given in terms of the standards, techniques, the band in the frequency band in which it operates, and the modulation techniques that is being used, and the data rate that is supported. So 802.11, the version or the basic version, the initial version is implemented in 3 different techniques. One is frequency hopping spread spectrum, which will be operating in 2.4 to 4.835 gigahertz range. So the modulation that is implemented is frequency shift keying. So the data rate supported is 1 to 2 Mbps. Next we have direct sequence spread spectrum that is implemented for 802.11, which will operate in the same frequency band as that of the FHSS. But the modulation scheme is different in terms of phase shift keying. The same data rate is supported, and the last one is implemented in terms of infrared, which make use of the pulse position modulation technique, which will support the same data rate. Next we have 802.11a, which makes use of optical frequency division multiplexing, operating in 5.725 to 5.850 gigahertz. And the modulation is either PSK is used, that is phase shift keying, or the quadrature amplitude modulation is used. The data rate supported is 6 to 54 Mbps, and the extended version of 802.11 DSS, that is 11B, which will operate in the same frequency band as that of the earlier one, but the data rate supported is different in terms of 5.5 to 11 Mbps. And the next extension is in terms of the same as that of OFDM, but the lower version of the lower frequency band it will be operating with the different modulation schemes, which will support the different transmission rate in terms of 22 and 54 Mbps and 600 Mbps when it is operating in this particular standards. We shall look into the physical layer specifications of each of these separately. So the first one is IEEE 802.11 frequency hopping spread spectrum, which is implemented. The physical layer implementation is designed and implemented based on FHSS, which is frequency hopping spread spectrum, which makes use of 2.4 to 4.835 gigahertz ISM band. Here it is divided into 79 subbands of 1 megahertz each, along with the guard bands. A pseudo-random sequence will generate a hopping sequence That hopping sequence is given to the frequency synthesizer. So dependent on that, the modulation is performed by making use of either 2-level or 4-level FSK with 1 or 2 bits per baud rate, which will result in 1 or 2 Mbps of data rate, as shown in this particular diagram, which will generate an 1 megahertz analog signal. The second specification, physical layer specification, is IEEE 802.11 DSSS, which is direct spread spectrum method, which uses 2.4 to 4.835 gigahertz ISM band. So the modulation here implemented is the PSK, that is phase shift keying, at 1 megabaud per second, which will allow 1 or 2 bits per baud, that is BPSK, or in terms of QPSK, which will result in 1 to 2 Mbps of data rate, as it's shown in the diagram. So the third specification is IEEE 802.11 infrared. Here IEEE 802.11 uses infrared light in the range of 800 to 950 nanometer. So the modulation techniques they are using here is a pulse position modulation. For 1 Mbps data rate, 4-bit sequence is mapped into 16-bit sequence, in which the only one bit is set to 1 and other rest are set to 0. For 2 Mbps data rate, 2-bit sequence is first mapped into a 4-bit sequence, in which only one bit is set to 0 and rest is set to 0. These mapped sequences are then converted into the optical signals. The presence of light is indicated by 1 and the absence of light is indicated by 0. So this is clearly mentioned. The digital data, 1 to 2 Mbps digital data, is fed to the 4 to 16 for 1 Mbps and 2 to 4 for 2 Mbps encoders, and then it is given to the pulse position modulator to generate the signal, finally the analog signal. So the next specification is OFDM, that is 802.11a, which is orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, which is used for the signal generation of 5.725 to 5.850 gigahertz of ISM band. The OFDM is pretty much similar to the FDM, with a major difference that all the subbands are used by the one source at any given instant of time. So the sources contend among themselves for at the data link layer for the access. Here, the band is divided into the 52 subbands, with the 48 subbands for sending 48 groups of bits at any given instant of time, and 4 subbands will have the control informations. So dividing this band into subbands somewhere limits the presence and effects of the interference. If the subbands are used randomly, then the security is also improvised in this case. And the OFDM uses the PSK and QAM for the modulation. So the common data rates that is supported are 18 Mbps if the PSK is used and 54 Mbps if QAM is used. And the next technique we have is 802.11b DSSS, which is high rate direct sequence spread spectrum, which is used for the signal generation in 2.4 to 4.835 gigahertz ISM band. So HRDSS is pretty much similar to DSS but it is differentiated from the basic DSS in terms of encoding method. Here it will make use of the complementary code keying CCK, wherein the CCK encodes 4 or 8 bits into one CCK symbol. So to enable the backward compatibility with DSS, the high rate DSSS defines four data rates. One is that is 1, 2, 5.5 and 11 Mbps. First two will use the same modulation technique as the previous DSSS. The 5.5 Mbps will make use of BPSK and it is transmitted at 1.7375 megabaud per second with 4-bit CCK coding. And 11 Mbps version make use of QPSK and it transmits at 1.375 Mbps with 8-bit CCK encoding. The basic goal of 802.11n is to achieve not only the higher bitrate but also eliminate the unnecessary overhead that was incurring. It makes use of a technique which is referred as multiple input multiple output, that is MIMO, to overcome the noise problem that was occurring in earlier wireless LANs. So the basic idea states that if you can send multiple output signals and receive multiple input signals, the noise is eliminated to a greater extent. So some of these implementations of the project has reached up to the 600 Mbps data rate. Completes the IEEE 802.11 project. So we have considered the architecture, Mac sublayer and the physical sublayer. We have considered all these concepts here: DCF, PCF, frame formats and types, and we have considered the addressing schemes. So under physical schemes, we have considered all these specifications. So that's it for the first part of wireless local area networks. We have considered the 802.11 standard, which is famously known as Wi-Fi. In the coming video or lecture, we'll consider the other wireless LAN, that is Bluetooth, which is also called as personal area network, for the discussion. Thank you.